Welcome to a Millennial's Guide to Real Estate Investing. Here is your host, Antoine Martel.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a Millennial's Guide to Real Estate Investing. Today I have two special guests, Jack and Jeff, who are from the High Return Real Estate Guys. They're a turnkey real estate company out of Indianapolis, Indiana. So welcome guys to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Excited to talk to millennials. Great.
Exactly. So first of all, I guess give us a little bit of background about both of you, maybe just a little quick 1 minute background for the people who don't know about you, and then we can go from there.
Sure. Yeah. So this is Jack. I started the company, or started in business, I should say, about 20 years ago. I was a full-time college student, and another college student was handing out flyers about a opportunity in nutrition, multi-level marketing company. So grabbed that flyer from him and went to work. I just posted on Facebook that, everybody's buying their lottery tickets for the $1.6 billion payout, right? And that flyer that he handed me was my lottery ticket and it came disguised as hard work and perseverance and lots of trials, tribulations, ups and downs, running building a business. But, I didn't leave it to chance. I made it by design, right? So I don't know, never played the lottery, not interested, want to grow things, through just hard work and creating systems. So then that business got pretty, big, and over the last few years had some extra cash, was looking for a way to deploy it, started investing into real estate, started with TurnKey because that made the most sense with me not knowing a lot about it and not having much time. And then, long story short, I love the whole model, started building my own business, referring clients in to my provider, and then eventually started High Return Real Estate, recruited Shekia, who was my former digital marketing coach in my nutrition company, and we partnered up, and now he is the CEO and running the show. So it's been great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then
yeah,
Jeff.
Yeah, good job, Jack.
You said a minute. I mean, there's never ever a time I'm going to do that in a minute. But, I got close.
Yeah.
Good
Thanks.
enough.
I'm feeling really good about myself right now. My name is Jeff Schechter. My friends call me Shecky. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Raised by a clergyman, somewhat kind of rebelled in my early years, didn't do real well in school, had to learn how to be pretty scrappy, and that kind of pushed me into the world of business ownership and entrepreneurship, and have done all kinds of crazy stuff, and had a flipping business back before the last crash. But I, over the last 10 years, got very, very curious about digital marketing and the psychology of connecting with people online, just because the medium is so much different than traditional stuff that we had always been exposed to earlier, like radio and television, which is just really just, spraying a wide path and hopefully you've got the right people. But yeah, online you can just hone in and do things in a much more targeted way. And as Jack mentioned, I was consulting him in his other business, and we had a really fantastic relationship. And obviously I had some background in real estate investing and businesses and systems and things like that. And, it was just a really, really good synergy for, what he was trying to do and the direction that I was trying to go with kind of my next opportunity. And, just good timing, good energy, good partnership. And now we've got a really rockin' turnkey business here in Indianapolis. So, I'm very blessed.
That's awesome. And then when did you guys have been doing, business together for many, many years, it sounds like, but then when did you guys actually sit down and decide to start a turnkey company, and kind of why did you start it?
So early in 2016, Jack reached out to me and said, hey, dude, I've been buying some properties in Indianapolis from this other provider. I seem to be getting some pretty good returns. I'm selling some stuff to some friends and family and things like that. And I think there's a business here. May I book a call with you just to get some ideas as far as, marketing and structure and, could this even be a business? And I was like, heck yeah, man. I mean, there's no charge. Like, you're Jack, like you're my favorite client, so it's like, let's just get on the phone and brainstorm and see what comes out of that. And that was in the spring of 2016. And that call was just, I remember it well. It was very amazing. Either the energy was really good or I had too much coffee or whatever, but we were on the phone for like 3.5 hours. And I remember being kind of sweaty when I was done. And I just, as a courtesy, I had typed up, the 10 or 12 major bullet points that had really come out of that conversation and emailed it off to him. And the very next day, he's writing me back going, okay, let's do it. And I'm like, let's do what? Like WTF? He's like, well, let's partner up. Like, there's a business. Like, I think Jack had a certain respect for me, for my marketing knowledge and work ethic. And I clearly had a tremendous respect for him, for his ability to grow businesses, his work ethic, and really just his overall hustle and his code of ethics.
Yeah.
And I just said, yeah, this probably makes sense. I didn't realize at the time I was going to be leaving my, cushy favorite city in the world, Austin, Texas, to end up, changing everything and move to Indianapolis, Indiana. But we do things that are not expected, and it's been a great adventure. And we've been doing this in Indy for a couple of years now, and building out all of our teams and processes, and it's been a fun ride.
Awesome. And then so then I guess, Jack, had you done any other rehab projects in the past in Indianapolis, or did you go straight from buying TurnKey, looking at the deals, and then you saw some properties that needed a little bit of rehab work next to the ones you bought, and you're like, oh shit, I can do this cheaper. I don't need to pay for retail. I can buy it at a wholesale price, renovate it, and then sell it to somebody else?
Well, that was more of a function of that transition of necessity, more so than it was me wanting to go off on my own and create my own, like acquisitions and rehab teams.
Yeah.
My original business partner, who he did all the acquisitions and the rehabs and the tenant management, there was just a lot of signs that he was imploding, and I didn't like his organization, system, structure. Just deep down in my gut, I knew this was not a sustainable model the way he was doing it, and I, turned out to be right. Although I'm very, very loyal, so it took Shecky, several conversations to say, dude, come on, man, like we got to part ways and do our own thing. So that loyalty to a fault, right? So
yeah,
we started doing our own, acquisitions and rehab and all that. And, we did several deals that way. We found, lots of challenges in terms of eventually branching off on our own. We were inexperienced, for one, so we didn't realize some of the dangers that we were up against with contractors taking advantage of us or just poor quality of work and such like that. So we are very integrous. We want to always make sure our investors are taken care of. So there were deals where we didn't make any money, worked really hard, closed, did a rehab, closed the property, got the investor set up, and then we have to go back and fix things after the sale that legally we were not any obligation to do so, but the way we want to grow our company is, we were obligated to do it. So we'd go back and be taking care of, different things that would come up that just weren't taken care of in the rehab. So now, that was what we call high return real estate 2.0, and now we're on 3.0, and it's just a whole different ball game, and we're doing things, really, really well and the right way. And so I'm sure Shecky will kind of dive into more of that, but it's just been just a series of just learning how to get better and processes. And at the end of the day, no matter whether we were high return 1.0, 2.0, or 3.0, our motto has always been, you know what, let's always do the right thing. Let's always be fair. Let's always take care of our investor no matter what, even if it's costly to us.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and I love to hear that. I've had a couple times, I've been in turnkey business too, selling turnkeys the last couple of years as well. And there's been times where I've, done my full rehab, placed a tenant on a 1 year, 2 year lease, whatever it may be. And then I sell the property, and then 2 weeks later, something bursts, right? And now my client, which I told, hey, you won't have to do anything to the house in a year or two, and the tenant's going to be there. They're on a 12, 24-month lease, and then 2 weeks in, they have a huge repair, like a pipe burst or something like that happens. And that's happened before, and it's nothing that we can, something that we can do in our due diligence or through our inspection. And sometimes stuff is hiding behind the walls, and the only way you can get to it is by tearing down the walls, but it's way too expensive.
Right.
So It's happened to me a couple of times, not very often, but we've gone and we've just told our client and said, hey, this should have been handled through our rehab. Sorry it was not handled, but we'll take care of it. And our guys go and do the rehab. And, we want our clients to have, a turnkey experience. They just focus on getting the financing, saving up the down payment, and then they just collect their mailbox money every month. And they shouldn't have to deal with, especially in the first couple of weeks of buying a property, they shouldn't have to deal with a big ticket item that needs to be replaced. So it's great to hear that.
We totally agree, and trust me, that's happened to us more than a couple times. And you just can't do, like you said, there's not much you can do to foresee it. I mean, if you really wanted to make sure that every single property that would never happen, like you said, it's going to get very costly to dig through all the walls and make sure all the electrical and plumbing is totally legit. So if you just take care of your clients, if the issue arises, then I mean, you're going to create a long-term sustainable business doing the right thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what helped us. I mean, 80% of the deals I sell today are just from referrals or from repeat business. I'm not sure what the number is for you guys, but it's been, if you take care, you don't need 1,000 clients. You need 50 or 10 clients that are just going to keep coming back and are very happy with the way you guys do business and the way you treat them and all that kind of stuff. So that's at least my mentality.
It's a lot easier and a lot less costly to sell more to your current customer list than it is to go out and acquire a new one.
Absolutely, for sure. All right. Well, then in terms of the turnkey properties that you guys are selling, in terms of financing, property management, in terms of the property management first, I guess, do you guys own a property management company? Is it a third party company? How does that work in your business?
So I'll take that one, Jack. We've sort of been through the whole graduation on the property management side. So, initially we were doing our own rehabs and all that kind of stuff, and we would work with a couple of different local property management teams that we felt were of high integrity and do a very good job. And I still to this day feel like they do a really good job. The problem for us is that the standalone property management teams, unfortunately, the only profit center they have is property management.
Yeah.
And so our investors, at the tenant turns and, even just little service calls, we're just really getting charged, in our opinion, too much money. Not necessarily too much money for a professional property management team, but as we grew this out, we always had a desire to control the property management piece or have some sort of in-house solution. And then last year we partnered up with a couple of just really amazing guys that are, born and raised here, that have been in the space for a very long time, and we knew them pretty well. And they were actually doing some of our acquisitions, and they owned a small portfolio themselves that they were managing themselves. And one of the two guys actually had a really, really long history in property management, most notably with actually a fairly large turnkey operation that I won't name, but they had just a ton of experience with that. And we kind of had a meeting of the minds and agreed that it would be in everybody's best interest if we formed a property management division expressly to support our client base.
Yeah.
And so that happened, I don't know, probably the beginning of 2018, beginning of this year. And that has been fantastic. Just because we have, obviously we have more control over even just little things like service calls and that sort of stuff. But just really being able to control the entire client's experience all the way through the life cycle is really valuable for us as a turnkey provider, and obviously really, really valuable for the end buyer. And they're getting obviously much higher cash flow as a result because we operate that division. We're not that concerned about profit in that division because all of us are working towards a situation where we're really rewarded financially on the sale of the property.
Good.
So everything is geared towards that, and the investor really wins in that situation.
Good. Yeah, that's exactly how I'm set up too, and that's what I tell my clients as well. Some people ask me how I make my money. It's like I only make my money on selling the property and making the profit on that end. There's no residual income for me. The property management company is going to charge you 10% a month but I don't get any of that fee. There's no other fees that I get for referring you to the people I'm going to refer you to or sending you off to certain people. So I like to hear that as well. How many properties does this property management company or this couple of guys manage right now?
Jack, you might know this better than me. I think we're at about 300 doors.
Yeah, that's about right, Chuck.
Okay.
300. I
Nice.
think it's 300, total doors, including multifamily.
Got it. Okay. And then do they charge 10%?
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Cool.
10%, and then the first month is the lease-up fee, goes towards the lease-up fee.
Yep, exactly. All right. And then do they set you up and your clients up with like a portal? Do they use any kind of online tracking portal and all that?
Yep, Appfolio.
Okay, good.
So the client can see, when rents are coming in and get a full reporting. Everything is right there.
Got it. Yeah, that's what my property management companies that I use in all my markets, except for one, use Appfolio too, and it's super easy to track the income and expenses for your properties and all that kind of stuff. I really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done a great job. They even we're mostly in C class. So, obviously that tenant base is a little bit more blue collar, a little bit more hand to mouth.
Yep.
And many of them like to pay in cash, and they've even, I don't know if it's through Appfolio or whatever, but they've even got a system where you can go out and get bonded, and it creates a situation where the tenants can pay cash for their rent basically at any ACE check cashing or CVS or anything like that. And they're, they're just holding up a little square code on their smartphone, and it registers the payment instantaneously, and then the investor can see it through their portal. So it's really a wonderful system.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then, so you said C class. So I do a lot of C class properties as well. I'm kind of getting into the B class kind of space, and I saw some properties on your website too, anywhere from $50,000 to kind of the $60,000 price range, and that's kind of where my sweet spot has been as well, or $60,000 or $70,000 price range. So in terms of financing, do you help your clients get financing? Do you require them to use a certain bank? What have you found best in terms of financing?
Well, what we find best is that we just don't take financing. We're selling all of our properties all cash. And it's been actually, when we made that decision, which was fairly early in our evolution, our business quintupled because we're not waiting on, the whims of the appraisers. Antoine, let's be transparent here. I mean, that can suck.
Yep.
And you have a situation where depending on the appraiser, you have no idea what's going to happen, and different banks can act really quirky. And the other thing that we found, even with or without the appraisal situation, is that when you put a $50,000 deal on a banker's desk, it's sort of last in line behind anything that's $50,001 or higher.
Yeah.
There's just not enough. They don't want to pay any attention to it. So we were originally writing up a bunch of deals and felt great about things because we were writing up deals, but what the heck? Nothing was ever closing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a few here and there, but it was just like, oh my God, this is just a grind to get it across the finish line. So what we did was we just said, hey, look, we're gonna really get this thing dialed in, and we price our properties all cash. So like that same $50,000 property, just to use your number, and I'm not saying you because you're not competing in the same market, but many of our competitors here in Indianapolis would sell that exact same property for $60,000 to $65,000.
Yeah.
That we're selling for $50,000. Because we're not dealing with as long of hold times and things like that. We've got the model, pretty thin, and that's just worked really, really well for us. And we do have a relationship with a couple of bankers that are really great on the cash out refis, and they have a couple different options that, yes, they're certainly going to be dependent on appraisals to a certain extent. But because it's a refi and the investor already owns the property for all cash, performance does come into play, and whether it's fully rented or not comes into play as far as making a decision as far as what loan to values are going to be and things like that. So we have plenty of investors that do that, but interestingly to me, I thought it would be a higher percentage. I don't have any hard data on this, but if I were to look at it, I know the majority of our investors, probably about 60%, are not ever refinancing. They're just need a good place to park their cash.
Yep. Yeah, good point. I mean, the biggest and only tie-up of that's really slowing me down in my business is waiting on financing.
Sure.
And it's the most. I mean, it helps the returns a whole lot because it goes from like a 9 or 10% cap rate all the way up to an 18 or 16% return when you look at the cash on cash. But again, I'm selling the properties at market value. I'm not selling them like you, a little bit less than market value, which definitely will help the returns a little bit. But I mean, the appraisals are the one thing that, has been slowing me down. And I have comps, but it doesn't really matter to the appraiser. It's all about what the appraiser thinks. And I've literally had appraisers, give me appraisals for $40,000 when I've had $56,000 in a house and I'm trying to sell it for $70,000, and they're pulling comps at $20,000 that need $60,000 in work, and it's like this doesn't make any sense. And I've had to even stop relationships with certain bankers and certain banks in general. One of the big couple of banks, just because they had this really bad appraiser list, who kept on coming back with these terrible appraisers, and each one of those cost me $600 or cost my client $600 to get out there and do an appraisal. So,
speaking of that, Antoine, just to kind of add on to what Shecky said, most of the deals like in our market for these C-class properties are being purchased are off market by out-of-state investors. So when the appraiser goes in to pull comps, they're only pulling comps of things that were sold through the MLS within a 3-mile radius, within the last year. And oftentimes, they're not going into those I'd say most of the time or all the time even, they're not going into the comp properties and checking out the condition. I mean, they could be completely dilapidated, needing, like you said, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of work.
Yep.
And they're using that as a comp for our property that we just got totally renovated, performing, new tenant in place, new lease. We created some serious extra value add, and yet we're getting comped on, properties that aren't even in the same ballpark. So that was our frustration with playing the finance game. So we found a lot of luck. Our investors are having a pretty good success rate doing the post, cash out refi, and that way they're not tying up our capital, because we gotta keep volume moving to keep our business, make it survive and make it thrive.
Yeah.
We can't wait. We can't tie up a property for 60, 90 days waiting on the bank to get everything in order to fund us out. Like that just destroys our model. So like Shecky said, when we just made the firm decision that it was no finance under any circumstances it just made a huge difference in terms of, us being able to open up the floodgates.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, we pissed some people off along the way. But you know what? It just we also attracted a different breed of client after that too, and that proved to be a really good decision.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, we're starting to get a lot of, maybe just it's more recent, but even over the last year or so, we've had a lot of 1031 exchanges coming in from people that are on the West Coast. That, they're selling a property and like, wow, the market's really saucy here. We've had a couple from Seattle. They're like, I'm selling a property. There's nothing here I can buy that makes any sense. So, we want to come and invest, in your market where it does make sense. So we're seeing and then typically those are pretty much all cash deals.
Yeah. That can definitely make the deals go faster if they're all cash. And, I'm not sure if some of your clients probably do inspections on the property and some of them probably don't. And, as long as the property's rented out and has its renovation completed, then, people can close in a couple of days. There's not much other research that needs to be done. It can be very quick without the whole financing, which for a new client could take 45 days. For an existing client could take, 30 days for them to do their financing.
Yeah, we actually bring in a third-party inspector. So as part of our processes, in an effort to facilitate a good, smooth closing, we actually give clients, we're really transparent. So we have some documentation about, like what to expect and, managing expectations, but we give them copies of all of our contracts. We give them before-after pictures. We give them scope of repairs. And we give them a 1-year warranty on the property on all the major operating systems because we went through and checked it out. We call in there's a number of third-party inspectors that we use that we call in. They give us an inspection report, and then we send our teams back in to cure any of the items that were at least worthwhile items that come up on the inspection report. And we have our team sign off on that stuff was done. And then obviously we get with our property management team and they get it leased up and all that. And then, and only then, is it made available for sale. So by the time an inspector is even, or an investor is even looking at our stuff, they were able to review everything. They're able to see that it's leased. They're able to see an inspection. They're able to see that the stuff on the inspection was cured. So we're putting them, and really ourselves to a certain degree, into a position where, like, look, it's binary at this point, Mr. or Mrs. Investor. You either like it or you don't. If you don't, it's cool. It's no big deal. But we're basically handing you everything you could possibly ask for on a silver platter up front before you even ask for it.
Got it.
That combined, that tends to soften, I think, the blow a little bit of not being able to take financing, because it's like, well, God, this is just so dang straightforward. It's like, and it's a pretty good deal on pretty much everything we put in front of investors, cash on cash, even after all expenses, is double-digit returns. Yeah. So, it's pretty straightforward, like either like it or you don't. And if you don't, it's cool, because if not, like there's, we got, right now we got a backlog. I mean, there's, 5-6 investors behind you that'll, pick this up in 5 minutes if you don't want it.
Yeah. I love that you guys are also selling them with the renovation completed, with the tenant in place. Jack, I'm not sure when you were buying turnkeys, if that's what that turnkey operator was doing, but a lot of my clients have came from, other turnkey providers, and they come to me, they're like, wait, you sell the property with its renovation completed and with the tenant in place, and I could see the lease? And I'm like, yeah, you don't. And because with the other providers, they were selling them, vacant properties. Maybe the renovation was complete, but they were selling them vacant, and then they would have to wait a month or 2 months before the property was rented out. Then they had to pay that first month leasing fee, and then they were starting to cash flow. So for me, I was like, well, I'll just eat up that time. I'll pay for the leasing fee. You guys just get the property with a tenant in place, and cash flow from day one is kind of what I keep telling my clients. You're buying this property, and from day one, you're going to be making your mailbox money.
Well, yeah, what you just described to me is actually really the definition of turnkey. I know there's different versions, and everybody has, kind of their different spin on it, depending on how they want to, market and purpose themselves. But in all reality, if you're really buying a turnkey property, it's done, completely done and leased up, and it's ready from day one.
Yep.
When I started buying, I was buying properties that even needed, a $30,000-$40,000 rehab. They needed a monster rehab. With that, when I would do that, I would get a discount to make up for the hold costs, right? Or I should say lack of holding costs. So, for instance, instead of buying a property where the provider had to rehab it and put in, a new tenant in place and all that holding cost time that they incurred.
Yeah.
They'd be selling it to me before that all happened, and in lieu of that, give me a discount. And we started our company off doing the same thing. But what we found was that it just puts too much stress and pressure on both the investor and on us, because it never gets done on the time frame that we all think it should be done, right?
Yep.
So then the investor's like, why is this not done yet? What's going on? Why am I not cash flowing? They're starting to get antsy. They're starting to get stressed. And then that caused us to get, feel the pressure. And then we're not enjoying this business. So we just said, you know what? Forget all that. We're just going to make a, bottom line resolution. We're not selling it until it's done, until it's leased up. And it's created such a much better experience for everybody involved.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And
think about customer experience, right? I'm sorry to interrupt, but think about customer experience. Like that's when I'm a marketing guy, right? So that's when they're hottest, like this bought, right? They're super giddy, they're super excited. Even a seasoned investor, that's still when they're the most excited. And that next 90, 120, 180 days, what happens and things are smooth and cash flow, like that's everything. That's what's going to frame their opinion of the entire experience. And, we see it over and over and over again. If that first 90 days, they have a very positive experience, that we don't even have to ask them to buy more properties. They're coming back to us and going, hey, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? Because it seems to me like, especially in the cash only business, the ones that buy from us, one or two to start with, are usually just trying us on, and they're wanting to see how good a job we do, how professional we are, and that sort of stuff. And assuming that there's a level of trust built with that first deal or two, it can potentially open up the floodgates to a lot of other business.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And a lot of these people too, is what I've found is, once you sell a property to somebody, you treat them right and they have success, as they tell all their friends. I mean, especially if you're selling to people on the coast like I am, where a lot of my clients are, and a lot of these people love to talk about, if somebody says, yeah, I bought a house in Indianapolis to their friend at lunch or dinner or whatever it may be, it's, the other person's reaction is, what? You bought a house in Indianapolis? Why the hell did you do that? And then, they talk about it for an hour and a half, and then that friend ends up buying a house in Indianapolis as well. And it's happened a lot of times, because it's just such a, for somebody who's not into real estate or doesn't know it, would never think of buying a house sight unseen in Indianapolis or in any market in the Midwest. So it's such a great conversation starter. It really helps that message spread to friends and other referral business.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely great to open up a conversation with the shock film.
Yeah, exactly. And then so that answers that. And then I saw that you guys do a lot of, I'm looking at your website right now, and you guys have a lot of 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses. So what do you guys, I've typically tended to stay away from those properties. I've done a couple of them, but I typically do 3-1 or 3-2 or higher. What are your guys' thoughts or feelings about the 2-1?
That's a great question. I mean, I can understand the position, but, we lease those up within a week.
Yeah.
They lease up very well and perform very well. So, the like a 1-1 single, we don't really see too many of those come through. We would tend to avoid those, but yeah, there's a huge market, at least in what we found in C class, for a 2-1. And of course, the 3-1s, 3-2s, those are absolutely going to be the most in demand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the 2-1s, it's almost like becoming our bread and butter.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing you have to look at too, Antoine, is, in being in this sort of lower price all cash business, we can pick up a 2-1 for obviously less money than a 3-1 or a 3-2.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like there's a different price point. Like a lot of our 2-1s will sell finished to the investors, with a warranty and tenanted and everything in the mid 40s. And it's just pretty much impossible to do that with a 3-1 or a 3-2.
Yeah.
So, we do get a little bit less rent for those, obviously, but price to rent ratios are nearly identical. And, for that person that is just trying us out or just, scratching to get into that one property, sometimes that difference between, say 46,000 and 54,000 could be all the difference between them being able to do business right now or having to wait another 6 months.
Yeah.
So,
good point.
We like having that stuff in our inventory as well. And like Jack said, we, at least in our world, and look, maybe that's just a function of a really solid property management team, but we have, as long as the property is, rehabbed nicely and, all the systems are working and, the heat's on and good water pressure, all the stuff that tenants are looking for, we have no problems at all getting those rented out.
Yeah. Yeah, for us too. I mean, so I do a lot of 3-1s, and we're able to rent those babies out in a week as well. And I mean, the couple of 2-1s I've done too. I mean, I've been able to rent them out for, of course, less rent, but same amount of time period. It hasn't been sitting on the market for a long amount of time, probably a week or week and a half as well. But it's just a question that I get asked a lot by my clients. They just don't like 2-1s. Maybe it's because something that they wouldn't live in, but it's kind of about their mindset and making the mindset shift to kind of, this is not a house that you're going to live in or ever going to live in. It's an investment, and it needs to be non-emotional and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. I think very much, all of us, and investors included, are very much influenced by realtor speak. And, we've probably all heard, all the other platitudes, oh, your home is going to be the biggest investment, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that we've heard often is never buy a 2-1, because they're just they're super hard to resell.
Yeah.
Right. But again, that's just framed around the whole world of the MLS. Like when you take, regular market stuff out of play and we're off market and we're only, like our own micro investor community, the only thing that we really have to appeal to is a tenant base.
Yep.
And, we've even had, investors that said, hey, like I'm in a pickle, I really need to generate some cash. When we've helped a couple of investors here and there to, sell back properties through our network. It's not something we want to do, obviously, but we're always going to do what we can to help an investor. But it's no problem. Like for us to sell a 2-1, it'll be gone in a few days. Like it's not the MLS.
Yep.
And it's not. So I think for anybody listening to this, it's an important distinction to say, hey, there is a big difference between thinking like an investor and thinking like a retail customer.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, very good point. I didn't really think about that, but that's definitely something that makes sense. And when people think of real estate, they think of realtors and they think of owning a home. Many people don't think about investing first, which is something a big. Again, it's all about the mindset and what information you have and who's that information coming from. So how are you guys finding your deals right now? I tell my followers and millennials who are looking to get into real estate all the time that I get 80% of my deals still from the MLS. The other percentage is from just off-market relationships or from wholesalers. But how are you guys finding the majority of your deals right now?
I think it's pretty similar to what you're doing. It's probably not skewed that high towards the MLS, but there's certainly we certainly get things off the MLS. We actually have an acquisitions team that kind of runs all of that so that we can be more stay in our lane, which is focused on marketing and sales and bringing in new investor capital. So we have a great team. That's the only way that we've been able to do the kind of volume that we're able to do. So to answer the question on his behalf, Kevin is our head of acquisitions. He does, it is MLS. He has other wholesalers that he buys from that mail out, 30,000 postcards a month.
Oh, wow.
He does, from estate type sales. There's also relationships that he's been doing this for 20 years with hedge funds that, come in and out of the market because typically they don't make it work with the way they want to do the model.
Yeah. And
so most of those are the bulk of how we're getting the properties. So it's usually, they're all pretty much, I'd say not all, but most of them are distressed properties to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It could be distressed where it only needs $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 worth of work. But to the owner of that property, they oftentimes they don't have that cash to inject it back into it to get it back, up to speed, up to performing status.
Yep.
So, we get to come in and buy it at a discount, and that's how that's how we make our money, is buying things at a discount. We're not making our money by buying things at full retail price and then marking them up again. It's typically we're finding those deals, and there's still, the market is getting a lot tighter. Indianapolis has definitely gentrified over the last 3 years. It continues to get, become more and more attractive to out-of-state investors. So prices are definitely going up. Deals are getting harder to come by, but we definitely, there's still deals to be found, and we put ourselves out there so people know that we're going to close quickly with cash. So we're very attractive as a place to for people to sell their properties off.
Got it.
Yeah, if I could just put an asterisk too on what Jack said, I think some of there's two advantages that we have right now that maybe over other turnkeys that are trying to come into play, or even just mom and pop operations that are trying to do similar stuff, is that we're buying in quite a bit of volume right now. So when you add that volume factor in and the fact that we're paying all cash, I mean, it says a lot to the sellers.
Yeah.
And we're able to get better deals that way than even many of our competitors. And Jack kind of touched on it, but oftentimes those relationships with the hedge funds are really, really valuable because, we may go in and buy, 15, 20 doors at a time that, for them, they're not really the owners. I mean, they're just kind of guys that are moving bricks and sticks and numbers around.
Yeah.
And it's like, these are not performing, so okay, we'll just offload them to these guys, and we may take a loss on the books, whatever, but they don't have any emotional investment in the sale, unlike maybe a distressed seller. So those are the kinds of things that I feel not only set us apart, but continue to help us stay ahead of the game and do a better job for our investors ultimately, because we have some of these systems in place that others don't.
Got it. And then so I've never bought anything from hedge funds. I've done stuff from banks and stuff like that, but have you guys had that relationship with the hedge fund through your acquisition manager, Kevin, or is there any other way to get in touch with these hedge funds?
God, I don't know the answer to that. For us, it's Kevin, and he's had these relationships for years, and he has actually been involved in supplying some of the other turnkeys over the years before we actually partnered up with those guys. So, part of the reason for us, being very excited about that partnership is just those relationships and systems and things that those guys bring to the table, because we have the ability now to have this incredible synergy between us that helps everybody. Yeah. So I don't necessarily know how to advise you, like in the Cleveland market or in the Memphis market or whatever, but they're out there. I think it's just a matter of researching and calling and flying in and buying them lunch and schmoozing them and start developing the relationships. But I think it's a good resource.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And then how many properties are you guys doing per month? Do you guys put all of your deals on your website?
That's funny. It's so hard to keep up with the website. That's why I'm laughing. It's like we're as of this current recording, we've got about 10 properties that we're just aching to cross the finish line. Like they're just nearing inspection and getting rented up and all this other kind of stuff. And literally we have a backlog right now of investors just waiting to be handed deals. So will any of those make it to the website is sort of the $1 million question. Like, yes, maybe if we can get our tech guy to, put them up there quick enough, and we will try and throw one or two of them up there just so we're kind of refreshing the content on the website.
Yeah.
But as you know from being in this business, Antoine, it's a relationship business, and many of our deals are happening after 2 or 3 telephone conversations with an investor, and it's like, hey, look, this one's just getting ready to cross the finish line. Let me send you the folder on it, and this guy takes a look at it, and 20 minutes later, he's ready to sign a purchase agreement. Now, that doesn't mean he made his decision in 20 minutes. It just means we've already we're pretty clear on what he's looking for, and he's pretty clear on what we can provide. And because he's had an opportunity to preview all of our paperwork and systems and all that other kind of stuff, he's already pretty comfortable with what he's seeing.
Yep.
So that's just a situation where, like even in our purchase agreement, we tell people, look, we still need the right to be able to throw this property up on the website, even if you've signed a purchase agreement on it, because sometimes we just need stuff to put up there. So it's been difficult for us to have our website be accurate. To answer your other question, I don't think it's very, very difficult, assuming we can find the inventory, for us to do 15 or 20 deals in a month. Jack and I have some very, very big goals, and we also have a podcast, and we really believe, probably like you do, that we want to become a serious player nationally and be known nationally, not necessarily outside, having deals outside of Indy, but there is, because of our relationships and what we do, there's plenty of more inventory and more opportunity for us to do things here.
Yeah.
And we are looking at other markets, but we really believe we can be doing 40, 50, 60 deals a month consistently. We're just, you have to put the systems in place to do that, and that's what we're building right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, to answer your question specifically, like last month, I think we closed 8. 8 were closed and funded. We've had as big as 30 in 1 month this year.
Wow.
And we've had maybe a month where, we're putting out new systems in place, to transition in. So maybe had 2 or 3. So I'd say on average for the course of the year, I think we're probably around the 8 mark. We've done somewhere in the neighborhood, I think we've closed 70 deals this year.
Wow. That's awesome.
So yeah, we're like, that's okay. We could have done 150, right? Is what we're telling ourselves. But
we just know, Antoine, that and I'm not saying this to brag. I don't mean it to come off like pompous. We are capable of doing so much more.
Yeah.
And from being in your position, when you have something of value, like you say to an investor, look, like you say, you're cash flowing from day one, and we're putting a lot of effort and systems and things into place to hand you, Mr. Investor, something on a silver platter, so you can have lunch on the beach in LA and tell your friend about how you bought a property halfway across the country.
Yeah.
Right. And not only can you sound cool, but you are cool because it was actually a smart investment. And you had guys like us doing all the freaking heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really good value proposition on both sides of the equation, both for us, the sellers, and the investors, the buyers. But because there's so much value on both sides, there's no reason that any of us, given the right systems, couldn't be doing 40, 50, 60 deals a month.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the one big drawback for me is just finding those deals. I mean, I'm in a couple of different markets, but it's just been very difficult. I don't have any acquisitions manager or anything like that. It's kind of just all me and my relationships on the ground, which are, with the realtors, property managers, wholesalers, etc. But it's just like this year alone, I think I've done 30 deals.
That's great.
But of course,
Yeah,
I'd like
fantastic.
but I'd like to do, I'd like to do 10 deals a month as well. And I have, the funding available. I have, like you said, like a backlog of clients who want to buy these properties, all that kind of stuff. The only thing has just been getting the amount of inventory required to get to that number.
It's such a balancing act, right? It's like you're on a teeter-totter. You got one time you got, more inventory available than you do have investors. And then, it flips the other way. And now you have, no inventory and you've got, 5 or 10 people clamoring for property. It's always probably going to be that way, just trying to always balance out that supply and demand. And it's never going to you're never going to reach equilibrium in it. It's never going to be perfect. So, you just keep balancing it out and doing the best you can. Right. And for you to do 30 though, I mean, you don't, that's you on your own, right? You don't have a business partner.
No, I mean, my dad is involved a little bit, but he has a full-time job. So he kind of helps with certain aspects, but
you're doing fantastic. I mean, essentially, that's what Shecky and I are doing individually. I mean, we did 70 split. That's 35 each.
True. Good point.
So you're doing, definitely doing a great job.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, we're getting close to the hour mark, so we can wrap it up. Is there any way for people to get in touch with you, maybe to learn a little bit more about Indy, about the properties that you guys have available?
Yeah, it's highreturnrealestate.com, spelled just like it sounds. We put our whole model up there. Just, with the big disclaimer based on what I already said, the inventory that shows on the property page may not accurately reflect what we currently have. But that said, we certainly will, we can find stuff. So it's not a problem. And I want to say too, Antoine, I'm appreciative of being able to have such a frank conversation with somebody else who is pretty much exactly in our space and, really understands many of the challenges that go on. And it's not an easy business.
No.
Jack and I have often joked that, we got started basically just kind of almost being like a sales and marketing arm for somebody else.
Yeah.
And we often joke and say, gosh, if we knew what we were getting into, there's no way on God's green earth we would have ever gone into this business. Right? Yeah. Because it's thankless, you know. It's you do everything for the investor and they still, they want more.
Yeah.
So we share, in some of your excitement over what you have done, some of the misery and some of the challenges that you have gone through. Like it's awesome to hear your story, and it's awesome to be able to share on the same level.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you guys are the first turnkey company that I've had on here, and you guys aren't in the same market as I am or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it's been great to chat with you guys. I could probably talk with you guys another hour about other things too, but we can bring you on again in a couple of months and chat again and see, where your business is maybe early next year.
We should have you on our show and we'll continue the conversation.
Absolutely. There. Let's do it.
Yeah. And dude, if you're ever in Indy, by all means, like dinner's on me, and we'll definitely swap some war stories.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And thanks for your kind words as well. And, I'm very impressed with what you guys have done as well the last couple of years. And I hope you guys can get to your goal of 1,000 doors a year. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show. It was great to have you. Great to talk with both you, Jack and Jeff. Hope to have you on soon. And for everybody who's listening, who wants to learn more about Jack and Jeff and High Return Real Estate, you can go to their website, highreturnrealestate.com. They have some properties available, but to get on the insider list, I think you should fill out the form and give them your email address to get those other deals.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so
Antoine.
much.
Enjoyed it. Yeah, appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good one.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.